Hey everyone, you're listening to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. This week's show is an interview with my co-host Mindy. Julie's out of town, so Mindy and I sat down to record her weight loss journey. She's gained and lost 60 pounds twice. Through this experience, she learned a lot about herself and what really works to keep her the healthy, vibrant woman she is. Let's get started. Welcome, Mindy. I'm so glad to have you here today. Usually there are three of us, and we've all researched a topic, and we're all talking the whole time. But today's setup is a little bit different. I'm going to be interviewing you, and I'm so excited to hear about your journey. You lost 60 pounds and have kept it off for several years now.
Right.
And you're just going to share why you did it, how you did it, what you've been doing to maintain it. And really, it's just an encouragement to anyone, not only for weight loss, but just for a big, insurmountable goal that you might feel like, I don't know if I'm ever going to reach this. So thanks for joining us, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say today.
Me too. This is something that affects, I think, everyone in one form or another, whether your issue is with weight or maybe some other, hand quotes, addiction in your life. Anything that takes priority that is unhealthy for you, we all have that something that we may struggle with. For me, it became food. When you and I met, we had just moved to Nashville from Atlanta. While we were in Atlanta, there were a couple of events that happened that completely changed my relationship with food so that it became such a priority in my life that I ran to it for any type of comfort. When we were in Atlanta, we experienced 2 miscarriages, and they broke my heart. There's no other way to put it. It just completely broke my heart.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And from there, it changed my relationship with the Lord. That's important because nothing bad like that had ever happened to me before. I had never lost anyone or anything before where I really questioned who God was. I say that because it was a much deeper issue than just food. It was a lifestyle change, and that I had an attitude of bitterness towards God, this anger that resonated underneath the surface. And so instead of running to Him, I ran to food. So when we moved to Brentwood from Atlanta, several years in, I kind of started to see the light of day as the younger children became a little bit older. I really started seeking the Lord again. I had stayed in church, but had kind of kept Him at arm's length because I just felt like I couldn't trust God. He wasn't who I thought He was. He had allowed this thing to happen in my life that I hated. And I couldn't understand why the Lord would take these babies from me. It didn't make sense. I really then began a journey with actually Ann Mims at Judson Baptist Church. We kind of went through a series of Bible studies together, and she said something that really changed my thought process. And she said, "Do you think you would have Jacob and Nathan if you had had those other 2 babies?" Because the miscarriages took place in between my first 2 children and my last 2 children. And so she said, "Do you think you would have had Jacob and Nathan, the last 2, had you had those 2 babies in the middle?" And I said, "Well, no, I don't believe I would." And she said, "Aren't you so thankful that you have those 2 boys?" And it changed my perspective of looking at a situation of just complete loss to the gift of the boys that I now have.
That's good.
I also started looking at that situation as the Lord kept those 2 safe. I know that they're in heaven. So in Nashville, I thought something's got to change. I'm tired of living this way. I'm tired of feeling sluggish. I'm tired of feeling defined by this addiction to food, to sugar, to carbs. And so in my mind, I thought, well, I'll just cut out carbs. There was the Atkins diet going around. There was the South Beach diet going around. And I thought, well, I'll just do that. I'll just cut carbs out. That's something I can do. Well, I did lose 60 pounds over the course of a year.
Wow.
And I loved it. I loved having lost the weight. But at the same time, I did not feel very healthy. I was tired a lot. My hair got pretty brittle. My fingernails weren't really growing that well. But I was so happy to have lost the weight that I stayed off of carbs.
So 60 pounds, that's a lot of weight to lose in 1 year. Is that something that is good for you?
It can be done healthy, but that was a lot to lose simply by cutting out a food group and not using exercise.
Okay, so you took about a year to take that weight off, and then you moved to Knoxville right afterward?
Yes, we moved to Knoxville December 1st, and between December 1st and September 1st, I gained it all back.
Oh,
Um,
wow. I'm sure that was very discouraging.
It was, like I said, the stress of the move, the ages of the children, the difficulty at transitioning communities. Like I said, then as soon as I ate carbs again, I didn't know how to maintain my weight loss. I didn't know how to work out or have balance with food. I had lost weight cutting out one major food group, and I thought, well, that's good. Well, it wasn't very healthy, and it also obviously was not maintainable. So I think that that's one thing is that I learned, unfortunately, through my life is that's not a healthy way to live. It's not maintainable. Sure, you might drop the weight. I did it, but you're not healthy. You don't feel good, and you're not able to maintain.
I'm sure you were at a loss as to what to do next. Did you consider cutting out carbs again?
No, I knew that I couldn't do that again because I knew, like I said, that my hair was thinning. I did not have any energy whatsoever. I felt shaky a lot. It did not feel healthy. And then also, there was no balance in my diet. So I knew that there needed to be balance, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to lose weight. I was very intimidated by going to a major gym. I didn't like being around men, even while I was working out. That's silly to say, but I just didn't feel comfortable trying to work out while there was like a lot of like perfect people in the gym, you know?
I can relate. I know when you go to the gym, if you don't know how to work the weights or the
Yes.
machines, or you just feel like everybody else knows what they're doing, it can be very
Yes,
intimidating.
it is. And I didn't. I didn't know how to use things and I was very intimidated to ask. Actually, let me start with this. This is very important. Okay, so when we moved to Knoxville, all of my children were finally at the age that they were all in school. And this is important for any mom out there that has had children at home for a long time. I had been a stay at home mom for 14 years. And this was the first time in my life that I knew I was going to have time during the day, every day, where all four of my children would be in school. And I started to pray. I prayed and asked the Lord, what do I need to do with my time? Who is it that I'm going to be when my children go to school? Because that's going to be a different person than who I was staying at home and planning play dates around preschool. The Lord put two things on my mind. The first was to get healthy and to do it right, to not do a quick fix, to not do anything, drastic, to not try to take a pill or do some fad diet, but get healthy, learn how to use equipment, ask for help, put yourself out there and ask for help. And the second thing was to get back into Bible study because, as I had mentioned, it was bigger than the food. It was me learning who God really was, even though bad things still happen to good people. It was learning to trust Him again. And so, those were the very two things that He said, this is what I want you to spend your time on now that all of your kids are in school. So when we moved to Knoxville, joining First Baptist Concord, a large church there in Farragut, Tennessee, they had an actual exercise ministry. And so I came to find that they had classes almost every day of the week, fitness classes. And so I thought, oh, wow, okay, well, I'll go try one of those. Well, I tried a couple of different ones. I was struggling. I was in the back of the class. My face was beet red. I was embarrassed because I was like, I can't keep up. I can't do this. But through the classes, I got to know some of the different instructors. One of the instructors in particular, Charlotte, she was this spunky little spitfire of a teacher, and she was about 10 years older than me, fit. She'd had two kids that were in high school, one was in college at the time. And she just had this great sense of humor. And I thought, I really like this lady. She is a real person living a real life, but she's found a balance with this exercise business. I went to Charlotte and I begged her to take me on as a personal training client. And at first she was like, "Oh, I really don't have the time. Here, let me have you go with this other girl." Well, the other girl was a 20-something, never had kids, perfect. I was like, I can't relate with that. There's no way I'm going to be motivated to go to my personal training sessions with a 20-something, never had a kid body. I said, "Charlotte, I can't do that. Will you please? If you have any time, I will be flexible." And she said, "Okay." But from the beginning, she told me, she said, "Now, if you start canceling on me a lot, I will not be able to meet with you anymore." And she put the fear in me. And I said, "I promise I'm going to be committed. Your personality, I think, will be perfect for what I am hoping to accomplish. I think we can get along well." So she said, "Okay, but I'm warning you, don't cancel on me."
That's great. I mean, you knew that you had to follow through. She basically told you, if you cancel on me, then you're not going to be able to meet your goal.
Yes, and I was so tired of living in defeat and guilt and shame every day. It was never about how I looked, it was always about how I felt, and I did not feel good. I felt guilt and shame with every wrong decision that I made. Every time I ran to food, it lied to me. I ran to it to feel better, and maybe for 5 seconds I would, but then the guilt and shame was such a heavy weight, I couldn't bear it anymore. I was so tired of it that I was not going to cancel an appointment with Charlotte. Something had to change, and it was time. It was absolutely time.
How many times a week would you meet with her?
Okay, so our original agreement was Charlotte and I would meet 2 days a week for 1 hour. So we would typically meet either Tuesday and Thursday or Monday and Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. And would she give you things to do on the days that you weren't meeting with her?
She was not going to mother me. She was a little tough, and I appreciated that. I needed it because from the beginning, she made me take responsibility. To maintain weight, she said, you need to be active 2 days a week. If you're trying to lose weight, you need to be active at least 4 days a week. So she said, the days that you're off, find something that you enjoy doing. Well, I found that I loved walking. So you and I walked when we were in Brentwood. And so I thought, well, I love to walk, so I'll start walking. I tended to walk. I would meet with Charlotte Monday, Wednesday, and I would go for a walk on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday.
And that kind of started a pattern in your life.
It did. It became something that I loved the walks. And I'm not going to lie, those sessions with Charlotte, I dreaded sometimes. I hated going. Again, I was a little afraid of her, and I thought, well, I can't cancel. And I'm always so happy when I leave. The way we talk to ourselves says a lot, and the biggest voice that you hear a lot of times is how you talk to yourself. And unfortunately, a lot of the times we're not very nice when we talk to ourselves. That was a period of time where I had to start putting my focus on the decisions that I was making that were good. So those days that I didn't want to meet with Charlotte, I would say, okay, it's going to be hard. I have to show up. I just need to show up. And when I leave, I'm going to be so happy that I did that. And so then when I left, I would really celebrate, like, way to go. You did a great job.
Well, what were the original goals? What kinds of things did you and Charlotte set out as goals for you?
Originally, we set out that I was going to lose 50 pounds. We both agreed on a goal weight. It was reasonable. Personally, though, I really never thought I would get there.
And how long did she say that it would take you to reach the end of your journey?
We didn't spend a lot of time talking about that. I would have a hard time looking at an elephant and then deciding to tackle it. And this was absolutely a major feat. And I never really thought I would get there. It was almost like I had to just do it one day at a time. I never looked up at how long it was going to take, or I would have quit.
That makes a lot of sense. What did a typical week look like for you? Did she have any dietary restrictions?
When we first started, and this is important for our listeners to know, she said, look, you need to make one major change at a time. Don't try to do it all at once or you'll fail.
That's good advice.
And so, first, she made me be responsible for taking this on myself. It was not going to be on her shoulders to be my mother and to slap food out of my hand. She was not going to be there to say, you need to get up and go for a walk. The first 2 months, the only change that I made was I got active. I started meeting with her 2 days a week and I started walking on the other days. After 2 months, I had not lost any weight.
Oh, wow.
I was a little discouraged, but at the same time, I wasn't really looking at the scale. I was more just like, it is what it is. But that's why I'm here. And I knew that I couldn't go back to who I was. So Charlotte, then at that point, she said, okay, it's time to kind of go to the next step. You're in the habit now of being active. She said, don't give up. This is where a lot of people quit because the scale's not moving. She said, but there are changes happening that you cannot see. She told me about MyFitnessPal, that I could get this app on my phone. And it was very helpful because she said it will help you learn about the nutritional values of food. And it's kind of up to you. She's like, if you eat bad, you're going to feel bad, but you have to decide that needs to change yourself. Going to workouts with her, I started noticing like, all right, I'm using MyFitnessPal now. I have so many calories per day that I can use. And it was almost like a little game. It's very much like money, learning the self-control with money. And it was delayed gratification. So I thought, I have so many calories I can use a day. I can use those however I want to. So some days I didn't eat very good, but then I started noticing I really didn't feel very good. And again, it was just back to the way I felt. I began to over just consequences, natural consequences. Food equals energy. If you eat the wrong foods, you're not going to have energy. You're not going to have what you need to tackle your life. And I was tired of feeling bad. After that 2-month mark and noticing how foods affected my mood, my sleep, my attitude, I decided that it was time to make some changes with food. I love to make eggs every morning, but it was ironic, the simple change of taking out the regular sausage and bacon, and I went to turkey product. Like, I love turkey sausage. I was like, that has a good amount of protein in it. So for a while, I was just doing like scrambled eggs and just turkey sausage in the morning. And I would have that every morning. But then I noticed that I actually had to add in a healthy carb in the mornings because I realized my body needed it. It needed those carbohydrates in the right portion to be able to feel good, full, and sustained through the day. That was one of the biggest eye openers that I had, that losing weight, it wasn't about not eating, it was about eating the right foods until you're full. Some of my favorite things to eat during that weight loss time was chili with beans because it was filling and I loved it. And there's a way to make chili a little more healthy. And I also found that I needed some sort of snack every day. You know, that snacky time hits and I'm like, I need something that I can go to, but within reason. So I fell in love with Raisin Bran.
I like Raisin Bran too.
Yes, I think everybody, that's another thing, that you have to have something to go to that you enjoy. Absolutely. And to be able to have a plan, to be able to, like Charlotte was, I asked her 1,000,001 questions about foods. I'd be like, well, what are good snacks to have? Or, what are some good meals? And we were constantly talking about meals together because she was also still, I mean, we became friends. So we were talking about, well, what should we make our families for dinner? What's a good healthy snack? It's good to have somebody that you can just pick their brain. I had so many questions about food. You really have to have a plan and learn. And once you get past that learning curve, whether it be learning how to use the gym equipment or learning what foods are good, once you finally get past that learning curve, it's so much easier when you have a plan of attack for healthy living.
Right. And how did your family and friends react as you started making these changes?
Well, that's interesting because I did keep it very quiet. I never told anyone other than my husband that I was doing this. I didn't want to have to keep up with anybody. I didn't want anybody asking me questions. I also didn't want to make anybody else feel guilt or shame, because I know that I have to be very careful about telling my story, because I want it to be an encouragement. I don't want it to be something that keeps somebody else in that whirlwind of guilt and shame of not being able to get out of that. And so Bryce was the only one that knew. And it took some time before there were some visible changes in my body. My mental stability, my mental status was much better. I was much more enthusiastic just about every little thing, because I felt like each decision granted me a freedom from this bondage that I had carried for years. Each decision freed me up. It was like it was taking like big loads of that weight off of my shoulders. And so in every relationship that I had, it flourished because I was more free to love people, to serve people, because I wasn't so worried about the things that were holding me back. There was one in particular situation that I thought of when the change was starting to be noticeable. I was in the kitchen. I had a workout tank top on. I was probably 4 or 5 months into my journey. I had my back turned to Bryce, and I was just pouring a cup of coffee first thing in the morning. And Bryce goes, "Wow, Mindy, look at your back and shoulder muscles. They are incredible." And I was like, "What?" I mean, there had been nothing, right? Nothing. It had been radio silent. It was me and Charlotte. And all of a sudden, Bryce said, "I cannot believe it. Look at your muscles." Like just me picking up the pot to pour it. He commented, "I had never had muscles." Like,
That must have been very encouraging for you to hear him say that.
it was. Well, and at the same time, so he made all the kids come to the kitchen and look at mom's muscles.
Oh, that's great.
At the same time of this journey, I also had to be careful because I had the very attentive and watchful eyes of my teenage daughter.
Mhm.
I needed this to be a journey that was an encouragement to her, that she could see in my life that it wasn't that I was trying to look a certain way, that it was something in my life that really was an act of the Holy Spirit. I had no self-control before this, and I had a major lack of trust in the Lord. And with each step of, getting back into Bible study, of relearning God's true character in my life, it just gave me life more abundant. My mantra during that time was choose life. Choose life with what I'm going to put in my body. Choose life with how I'm going to spend my time. Choose life by getting into the Word of God and letting that shape me. At the same time, it was just amazing because Abby Ray was watching this, and she was watching the changes, and she knew how I was before. And she was watching me change this now, the way that it should be changed, the healthy way to lose weight. And that's just portion control and being active,
Mhm. Yeah.
not as an obsession, but as a good choice.
Right. So, how were you able to stay committed each day? Did you feel like you went off the rails a few times, or were you able to stay committed?
In the beginning, it was just sheer like I just do not want to be that person anymore. I'm so tired of myself. I can't stand myself anymore. Things have to change. When the weight loss started happening and my body started responding to better foods and being active, I just became so excited. It's like life again started to fill me. And a beautiful thing happened when I started walking. Walking became a great source of prayer time with God. And everything that I had been holding in and been anxious about or fearful of or mad about, when I would go for walks, I started going for longer because I realized I had that time where I was not distracted by things that needed to be done around the house.
Mhm.
I was not running errands, and I could just talk to the Lord. I started walking. First, I'd walk 2 miles, then 3, then 4, then it became 6, then it became 8. And I decided I was not coming home until me and the Lord had had some great time together.
Mm.
So I want to emphasize that because I fell in love, first of all, with being active, with moving, with just learning how to sweat. I started getting encouraged by my body losing weight. But then I also fell in love with the time with the Lord. And I felt like our relationship was finally back to where He wanted it. I finally knew what a loving father He was, even in the midst of sometimes things happen that we don't like. I would hit plateaus. I would lose 5 pounds and then I would plateau for a month. And Charlotte would say, "This is completely normal. You change one little thing again, and your body will respond again." But our body has a great way of stabilizing itself. And so it does not want to lose weight very quickly because it has to make sure that it has everything that it needs. And that's how God made it.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that it was going to be a marathon, not a sprint.
Right, right. Someone listening, they might think, well, that's great for her. She's home all day. She has the freedom to go to the gym whenever she wants to. It's not as easy for me. I work all day. I get up early with my kids. I am rushing out the door. When I get home at night, it's already cold and dark. What
Right.
kind of advice do you have for somebody in different life circumstances?
Yes, and I understand that because later on in my journey, I started working, and I knew that life very much. The trying to maintain or to try to be healthy when you're just exhausted from work. And I would say, take heart. Everything that you do, you can live your life in a healthy way in the midst of busyness and chaos. You actually have control over some things in your life. And those few things that you might have control over, those are the choices that you can make for the better. So you still control what you put in your mouth, whether you're in, carpool, whether you're running to work early in the morning. Living a healthy lifestyle it's a balance between the foods that you consume and the exercise that you are able to get. And I'll say food plays a really big part in your health, but being active also is important.
It's so interesting because it seemed like in the past, the big push was for activity, was get out on that treadmill, log your calories, work out 5 to 7 days a week. It seemed like, the harder the better. But now I have heard a few times in the past year, and food and diet issues are always changing, but I've heard a few
Right.
times where they actually say that food is more important than activity. It plays a bigger role in weight loss or weight gain. So even if
Right.
you don't have time to exercise as much as you would like, portion
Mhm.
control and watching what you eat is the best way to maintain weight. And I was so happy when you said that your trainer told you that 2 days a week exercising is adequate for maintaining
Right.
weight, because so many times you feel like you have to
Right.
be getting out there 4 or 5 days a week. And if you're not, then it's just a downward spiral. I'm encouraged to hear that.
Right. And obviously, being active, there's different kinds of workouts. There's like the hardcore, like I feel like I'm about to die workout. And then there's just going for a walk for 10 minutes. I'll tell you though that weight training is also a lot more important than I realized. So when losing weight, learning how to do body resistance exercises and weight training was actually very crucial in my muscle tone and in my overall health. Even now, walking is one of my favorite things to do. And if you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, if you have a set of stairs in your house, I think it's just setting apart time and being intentional. We've talked about being intentional a lot. Being intentional to prioritize your health. And that's having a plan for the foods. If you're on the run, planning for it. You can eat healthy at a restaurant. I've done it. Look at the menu ahead of time, find things that you can do, substitute here and there. You can absolutely eat healthy with if you have to be on the run. And then I keep a set of 10-pound dumbbells sitting nearby, and I'll be cooking dinner and I'll think, oh, I haven't had any chance to do any weight training. And I'll stand there and I will use my dumbbells as I'm waiting for things to cook.
That's a great idea. We've talked about this a little bit, but what do you think the greatest benefits of your weight loss journey have been?
The biggest benefit is I just feel like I'm an active participant in my life. I'm able to sleep at night. My moods are much more level. I've learned to not run to food when I'm anxious or happy or sad because I've experienced all of those emotions all over again with this new move.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that is not a sustainable place to run, it will lie to me and it will not make me feel better. Learning to run to the Lord with those emotions is how I'm able to maintain, to stay where I am. One silly thing that I thought of is I remember feeling on Sunday mornings before I started doing something about my unhealthy lifestyles, I dreaded trying to figure out what to wear on Sunday mornings to church.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why I struggled with it, or if my husband would ask me on a date, I just didn't feel good. I didn't feel good about myself. And I didn't feel free to enjoy the date or to enjoy getting dressed up because I just wasn't me with 60
Mm-hmm.
extra pounds. I remember one of the big benefits of getting my weight into a healthy place again was on Sunday mornings I would wake up and I didn't have to worry about if clothes were going to fit. Like I knew the things in my closet would fit, and it freed my mind to worship. It freed my mind to make breakfast. It freed me to enjoy the morning. When my husband asked me on a date, I didn't have to worry about what was I going to wear. I just felt more alive and happy and just free.
Mm-hmm.
There was no burden anymore.
Right. I know that you went on to teach fitness classes yourself. How did that come about?
Well, it was it was interesting. So I met my first weight loss goal of 50 pounds, and I just didn't feel quite done yet. And I talked to Charlotte, and I said, Charlotte, I just feel like I want to lose another 10 pounds. And she really cautioned me. She said, now you figured out how to lose weight, but we need to be careful. You need to stay in a healthy zone. I don't want this to become an obsession. And she said, and I also don't want you to become too thin. And so she jokingly said I wouldn't look good too thin. So I was like, oh, okay.
Well, when you had lost 50 pounds, did you feel like that was a weight that was healthy for you and something that you could have been happy with?
Yeah, it was the weight I really could have been happy at, but I just didn't feel, I felt like the 10 more pounds was the goal that I never thought I would reach the first goal. So when I finally reached it, I was like, oh, wow, it's possible. So that 10 more pounds would just give me a buffer, because we fluctuate weight all the time. So it would just kind of help with that buffer. When I met then the next goal, we both agreed I was done. Well, I started having some anxiety because this had taken 9 months. It had been an active effort to do these changes, and I was scared to death at letting go of that time with Charlotte. And what was I going to do? Because I had lost 60 pounds before, obviously the wrong way, and gained it all back. And I had worked so hard this time to do it the right way. And I was so happy that I just didn't know how to maintain. That's a different skill set than losing.
Mm-hmm.
The very week that I actually met the goal, Charlotte came to me and she said, I have been praying about what to do. I'm about to lose one of our instructors, and the Lord keeps putting you on my mind. I feel like you should go get certified to teach fitness classes and personal train. And
Wow, that's so cool.
I tell you, Marie, like I've never been so shocked. I felt sick. I was like, no, you're talking to the wrong girl. I am not the fitness guru. I've been healthy all my life. And I said, and I don't even feel like fitness should be your main priority in life. It's a part of who you are, but it's not the main thing. And I said, "You've just got the wrong person. I'm very happy in the back of the class."
Right.
And she said, "No, Mindy, that's what makes you the right person." She said, "You have been there. You understand where these women are. A lot of women that come into our ministry struggle with this. And what better person than somebody that's actually taken the steps to change?" She said, in 12 years, I think it was 12 years, she said, in all of her time of personal training, no one had ever actually changed. She said, "Everybody quits, everybody." She said, "But you didn't quit." And she said, "That's never happened to me before, that I've walked with somebody from beginning to end." And she
That's
said,
quite the statistic that nobody has actually made it through
yes,
until the end.
yes. I don't think that I'm anybody special for that. I just feel humbled and thankful that I was able to. And I still don't know why I was. It's a mystery to me. All I can say is that there were a million decisions that had to be made over that 9-month period. And every time I had to make a little decision in the day, I wanted to make a decision I was going to be proud of myself for. When she asked me to get certified, I was terrified, completely and utterly terrified. I trusted her, though. We had become very good friends. I started studying. My family was very supportive, and I passed my exams for a fitness instructor and personal trainer. I started teaching classes, and she kind of helped wean me into classes. And I had some really funny scenarios that happened my first couple of classes, which I have some good friends that were there
Mm-hmm.
and saw those struggles. But it was the next step in the journey that I felt like the Lord said, "Okay, we did this. Now I want you to take another step."
That's amazing.
It was really hard for me to get it up in front because I didn't feel like I should be up there, I guess. I felt like I was the last person that should be up there.
Right. I can see how that would be intimidating. You're starting something brand new, you're up in front of people. How many classes did you start teaching?
I started out teaching one class a week, and I would be nervous the entire week, and I would be sick in the bathroom
Oh,
before
no.
every class. And that was a year. It took a year
Oh,
because
wow.
I was uncomfortable. But in that year, gracefully, the women at First Baptist Concord in that ministry stuck with me, and I knew how to do things, but just being up there as an instructor was a whole nother level. Because I was now doing this with teaching and training, of course, I was going to maintain my own lifestyle because I
Sure.
was now teaching. So, gracefully, it was a great step for me personally to take because it gave me something else to focus on. And I felt like I was right back at the beginning of the learning curve again.
And that's understandable too, because losing weight, that was a goal that took
Yeah.
up a lot of headspace. And once
Yes.
you've met it, then you really need something else to occupy your
Uh-huh.
mental state and something new to think about and some goal to work toward.
Yes. Absolutely. So after actually a year of teaching that one class, somewhere in there I took on another class and began teaching 2 classes a week. Well, then something happened at the church and Charlotte ended up taking a promotion and ended up hiring me on in her as her replacement, which was over all of the exercise and wellness programming at First Baptist Concord.
Well, that's really
And
neat.
so now I was working part time in that department, managing all of the fitness calendar, the instructors, all of the personal trainers. We had weight room, a walking track. That became my job, which was then the next step of me just maintaining and leading an active lifestyle. It became a ministry that I could really speak into women's lives that wanted it. I didn't never push myself on anyone. I'm not the poster. Like I don't go to the gym and take selfies.
Right.
Nobody ever knows when I worked out or nobody ever knows what I'm eating because I just don't feel that that was something I wanted to put out there. Women that are really looking for change in their life, they have to decide to change it on their own. I never wanted to make somebody else feel more guilty or more shameful if they were stuck in a downward spiral.
Mhm. Yeah, that's wise. So now you've moved and you're not at that ministry anymore. And how has it been maintaining in a new place on your own?
Oh, wow. It's interesting because this was a good reminder for me to have to think through my story again because I've struggled in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I've struggled with moving here. I've struggled again with, Lord, why? Why? Why are we this far from Abbey Ray? Why did we have to leave a church that we loved? Why did we have to leave a community that we loved? And there are times that I could see myself wanting to slip back into using food as a comfort. But it's ironic because that 9 months of my life was so hard.
Mhm.
And I remember how hard it was that I don't get very far going down in that spiral. I've learned, and I think that's what it's all about is just recovering. Every day is new and fresh. We're all going to have a bad day. We're all going to have a bad week. It's just learning how to forgive yourself more quickly and recover more quickly so
That's
that
really
you don't
good.
just keep spiraling downward. At this time in my life, we were very fortunate to move within 1 mile of a YMCA that has a full schedule of classes. That was one of the first decisions I made was we went and joined the Y.
And you had
And
not
so
previously been a member of the Y.
I had never been a member of a Y before or any gym, period. So now I'm at the point where I'm actually okay with not teaching because I feel like I'm learning from all these other instructors. It's actually been exciting to try all these new classes. I'm meeting people at the YMCA. That's where I've met some really neat friends. Yes, I have bad days.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I call it what it is. I call it a bad day. And I'll encourage anybody out there that, you know what? The next moment is new and fresh. The next morning is new and fresh. The Lord's mercies are new every morning. And so when you wake up tomorrow, you don't have to live in the bad decisions of yesterday. You
Mhm.
can make new decisions. You can start fresh and new. Don't be defined by what you did yesterday. I'm doing very well. I've been able to maintain. My clothes got a little snug there, but I knew how to then back it off. I knew how to kind of say, okay, you're getting out of control, Mindy. It's time to, watch this, this snacking time. You need to change this about your evenings because your evenings now are really long and cold. So, what are you going to do with all of that time? Because you're not able to just sit there and eat.
Oh, that's true.
That's where I've talked about dancing around the house. I challenge the boys to plank competitions. I love doing planks. I've got my dumbbells sitting around the house. I just have to be mindful of, oh, you've been sitting for a long time. It's time to get up.
Right.
And I do, yeah. You feel better. Like, you're going to feel better if you just get up and move.
Right. I'm sure it's amazing for you to compare how you felt when you moved to Knoxville versus how you felt when you moved to Pennsylvania. And all of it has been such an internal change. It hasn't been something that someone told you you had to do. It wasn't something that you were trying to keep up with somebody. This has been something that you've had to work on one little step at a time all by yourself.
Right. It's truly one of those. I wanted to be proud of myself. And I think that just getting to a point of surrender with not running to food, but running to the Lord, learning that gift, that spiritual gift of self control that was so lacking before. It's just given me a basis. I felt like I kind of grew up. It helped me even in our finances to learn the same skill set as I have so much money. What am I going to do with it? Well, every day I have so many calories. How am I going to spend them? And to this day, I'm using my FitnessPal app. It helps me keep in control. I enjoy it. I don't weigh myself every day. I go by kind of how I feel and how my clothes fit. So I'm not really concerned about a particular weight. I just know when I feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very balanced. I eat every food group.
Right.
I will never again cut out a major food group. It's just not healthy or sustainable.
Yeah. If there's someone out there listening who wants to start making some small changes, what kind of advice would you have for them?
So it can't come out of negative influence.
Mm-hmm.
It really needs to come from a place of a logical thinking, practical planning. It's if you have one friend, Charlotte became my great friend, and our relationship is what helped me through, but she wasn't responsible for me. I was still responsible for the plan, but it
Mm-hmm.
was so great to have her there. And so while I was very quiet to the world, I needed that one person.
Right.
If there is a friend, if there is your spouse, maybe, if there's somebody, maybe you can't afford a personal trainer, you don't have to. If you know somebody that lives a healthy lifestyle, that's balanced, that's real, that you can relate to, that you kind of look up to, if you have a person, maybe ask them, hey, can we just talk? Can we have some conversations? Also, just coming up with healthy recipes. But I'll just encourage you just to eat every food group within reason. Maybe use My Fitness Pal if you need to learn about foods and start moving. Start finding ways you enjoy to move. I love walking. I still love walking. Walking gets no respect from the exercise community.
That's very true. Well, this has been so encouraging and really enlightening, Mindy. I think, as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, that any goal that we have that seems large at the beginning, if we chip away at it little by little, we will eventually reach the end. And I think that your journey has shown that a day at a time, a decision at a time, all those things make a big difference.
Yes, it really is. It's 100 decisions every single day, waking up every morning, committing to it once again, learning to speak kindly to yourself, focusing on the victories in your life instead of maybe the failures.
Mm-hmm.
Starting to point those out to yourself and intentionally saying, wow, that was a great choice. Good job on this. Good job on that. You make, a bad choice, say, you know what? I made a bad choice. Let's forgive it and let's move on. Let's recover well and get back to it.
Right. That's good advice in all
Yes.
areas. Thank you for being vulnerable, Mindy. It's not an easy thing to share such a
Yes.
personal journey. And we really appreciate you being so open and honest. If you would like to contact Mindy, you can email her at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com, or you can contact her on our website or on our social media. She would be more than happy to respond with anything that you would find helpful.
Oh, I absolutely would. If there's anything I could do to help any one of you, wherever you are in your journey, please contact me.
Your journey is amazing, and I think it will be an encouragement to a lot of people.
Oh, I pray it is.
Friends, we're so glad you joined us today. If you enjoy Midlife Matters, we hope you'll tell a friend. Show them how to find us on their phone and hit the free subscribe button so that they never miss an episode. They can also download and listen to each episode right from our website, midlifematterspodcast.com. We'd love to hear from you. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Midlife Matters Podcast. You can also email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you back here next Wednesday. Bye.